You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru attı. Kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Zuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet. Ve
Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 229 of the Black Eagles podcast. And that's right, I'm your host, the one and only Sinan back again. And yeah, New York City is the place where I host from, as per usual. Crazy weather, very nice, mild weather with crazy rain patterns, like really weirdly unpredictable. Theoretically, there was going to be tornado stuff, but in fact it wasn't, and it was warm enough. There was just these like little refreshing sprinkles at the end of the day. A little bit scared about, but in the end it was pleasant. And once again, a perfect metaphor for our Beşiktaş experience. For those who know. If you know, you know. Let's talk about Beşiktaş. We had a fun week of very little rumors and just kind of gossip about who was staying, who was going. Nothing concrete and like nothing really credible. Supposedly like Kyle Larin was back in the rotation for potentially re-signing because he showed some verve, some energy in his last outing under Big Valérien Ismail. But of course nothing concrete. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Everything's going to the last minute. So let's just talk about this match, folks. Let's dig in.
Operation is in effect as of right now.
That's right. So, of course, the match itself was against Göztepe. And Göztepe is a side that's guaranteed to go down. Sad in a sense, right? We all want to see Izmir represented. I think we could argue that, Göztepe is not my favorite of the Izmir side. So, them being the one going down. I'm sadder about Altay, perhaps you could say. But whatever. I won't get into that just yet. What I'll talk about is like what precedes this match for Göztepe. They have not won a match since January 22nd. And what's actually quite interesting about that is they went on this run where they had won 5 matches in a row from the very end of December into the end of January, essentially. And so they were like, there was some question of, maybe Göztepe is for real. Maybe they'll make a run of things for themselves. Maybe they'll be more than they had looked like they would be, and they'll stay up. And then, bam, like from then on, from January 22nd on, they lost to Altay, drew us in the cup. Of course, we got past them. They lost to Hatayspor, they lost to Galatasaray, they lost to Giresun, they lost to Kasımpaşa, they lost to Trabzonspor, they lost to Alanyaspor, they lost to Konyaspor, they lost to Kayserispor, they lost to Fenerbahçe, they drew Gaziantep in Gaziantep. So there's some credit to them there, but I think by then it was too little too late. They lost to Rizespor 1-7. Yes, they were the home side. And they lost 1-7. Then they lost to Fatih Karagümrük in the match prior to ours. So just terrible form. If Fener was the opposite last week, as far as like the best team in the league form-wise, Göztepe is pretty undoubtedly the worst team in the league form-wise. So it would take some machinating to make this a competitive match. But this is Turkey, where the referees love nothing more than just that type of a challenge. Machinate, they would. But so, obviously, before we even do that, we should probably talk about the last time Beşiktaş played Göztepe, and it was right before their little winning streak, actually. Excuse me for that sound, dropping things. But right before that winning streak I mentioned at the end of December, they played us in Istanbul at Vodafone Park and lost 2-1. Kyle Larin would equalize after Sheriff Ndiaye would give them an early lead. They scored in the 3rd minute, but then Kyle Larin in the 31st minute equalized. Ozan with the assist. There was that little brief period where we thought Ozan might be the solution. And then in the second half, it would be Rashid Ghazal with the go-ahead goal, Michy Batshuayi assisting, and that would be the final score, 2-1. So, a good result for Beşiktaş the first time around. How would it go this time? Let's talk about it, shall we? There would be some issues, of course, for Beşiktaş going into this one, as there always are. First of all, in goal, Emre Bilgin. That's right. I said Emre Bilgin in goal, not Ersin Destanoğlu. On the back line, Javi Montero, Wellington, and Serdar Saci. So, Domagoj Vida, notably absent from the back line in this scenario. Serdar, the go-to guy over Necip, which is good news. I think we could all potentially agree. On the wings, for wing back, you have Umut Meraş on the left side and Valentin Rosier on the right. Playing alongside Joseph de Souza and again Emirhan İlkan, the young Beşiktaş academy product, getting another prolonged look in the center of our midfield. Up ahead of them would be Kyle Larin and Georges Cavin Nkoudou. I'm sorry, that's not correct at all. Nkoudou and Rashid Ghazal on the wings with Kyle Larin up top. But so that would be the top 3. Sorry, my app got this thing mixed up, but I know better than that. I can work on the fly. As for Göztepe, their goalkeeper was Arda Özcimen, 20-year-old Turk. So that would be, a prospect for anyone who's on the prowl for that type of thing. Marko Mihojevic, 26-year-old Bosnian central defender, alongside Kahraman Demirtas, 28-year-old Belgian Turk, and Dino Arslanagic, the 28-year-old Belgian. On their wings would be Berkan Emir, 34-year-old left back, and Murat Paluli, 27-year-old Turkish right back. On their midfield, up ahead of them, David Tijanic, 24-year-old Slovenian, Atakan Cankaya, 23-year-old Turk, and Yalcin Kayan, 23-year-old Turk as well, playing behind Franco Di Santo, 33-year-old Argentinian central forward, and Makana Baku, the 24-year-old German, perhaps more intriguing prospect one could be paying attention to on this Göztepe side. But so kind of interesting lineups abound for both sides. Obviously for Beşiktaş, nothing too crazy, not like the Fener match, but some makeshift aspects, components, at least on the back line, and certainly in the goal. But so let's dig into festivities here. Let's talk about the match itself. So, what went down? Let's talk about it. So first of all, the first real action of the match was in the 5th minute. And it was an odd, baffling bit of play. It would kind of underline the form our opponent was bringing into this match. So in the very 5th minute, Emirhan, with a lovely ball, although the timing was a bit off, perhaps if he'd one-touched it, things would have resulted in a different outcome, but perfectly placed into the path of Kyle Larin, who runs a bit down the right side, sends in a cross that mysteriously just bounces off of Dino Arslanagic into the back of the net for an own goal. Mysterious, perhaps great for us, a great beginning, but no. Kyle Larin was just a bit offside. And again, if Emir Han's ball was like a one-touch, just a couple seconds earlier, could have been a shock first goal of the match. But it's not. And instead, in the 9th minute of play, a yellow card for Valentin Rosier. A bit of a baffling play. It looked like a line judge had said that it was Beşiktaş's ball for a throw-in. Göztepe's right back picks it up, or left back rather, picks it up to throw it. Rosier sort of jumps up to block him and get the ball back because it's our ball, right? Apparently wrong. And not just wrong, but because he did that, he gets a card for it, which is, I think, doubly baffling since I think it was kind of a lineman judge error. But so fine, whatever, it's just a yellow card, right? No big deal. Right? It results in a free kick that is lofted really nicely into the box for them, resulting in 2 point-blank shots on goal saved by the young, impressive Emre Bilgin, who, we have some minimal knowledge of going into this match, but that certainly makes us feel a little bit better about the kid and about what's going on in this match, even, right? So fine, but on that very play, Wellington goes down to injury, and on comes Necip Uysal. Alright, so now that somewhat makeshift backline becomes even more makeshift. I mean, makeshift is not quite the right word. Just backups, just a B team, right? Nothing too crazy. But so, let's keep going with it. 18th minute. And here's where things get really bizarre. So, a bit of a counterattack opportunity for Göztepe. Valentin Rosier with, it looks like a fairly typical tackle. I don't even know if I really registered much in the way of contact. But it's a yellow card for Valentin Rosier. And he's sent off in the 19th minute. And to say that there's some injustice at work here is, I think, an understatement. Both. The first card was somewhat questionable, although in a vacuum, right? Okay, you give someone a card for that type of play. But certainly then the second one is beyond reason. I think we can all agree. Quite bizarre. So we're a man down. Like I said, the only way a side like Göztepe could win at this stage, given their terrible run of form, is with some machinating on the part of referees specifically, and of course that's exactly what we get. So her reaction is a 21st minute substitution. Kenan Karaman coming on for Georges Kevin Nkudu, and so at this point I think we're sticking with the sort of 5-man back, or the 3 back, with now Kenan Karaman as a right wing back and Umut Meraş still as a left wing back. So instead of having wings, we have just two guys up front. And so, theoretically one of them can run off and be more of a support for the other one to be more of a classic forward, and vice versa, depending on things positionally, right? So whatever, you're a man down. Hopefully we deal with it. That's all we can hope for. It doesn't help that we have basically a debutante in goal. I mean, not quite, but basically, right? Whatever. 25th minute, yellow card for Murat Paluli. They're getting physical at this point. They've realized they can disrupt play by getting physical. And they're doing it. That's the NYPD giving us a little drive-by. But so yeah, in the 26th minute, right off of this yellow card, right sort of outside of the penalty box, Rachid Ghazal steps up to take a free kick, sends a shot really strong but into the wall. It careens out to the left and right into the path of Kyle Larin, who runs in well, good response from him, to be fair. And yeah, he's got, kind of does exactly what he needs to, which, hey, how about that? We could have used that all season, Kyle. But, whatever. It's still appreciated, I suppose. He does a nice job of it. Kind of a looping shot into the side netting. Done nicely. Goal. And Beşiktaş is up, responding well to going a man down. Unjustly, perhaps justice served cold in the way of the ball hitting the back of the net there. 31st minute, a yellow card for Atakan Cankaya, and that physicality right there, it's really starting to bear out. Despite being a man down, we're still maintaining much of the ball. I think it's like 60-40, roughly speaking. And so they're resorting to physicality, to rough play, to try to disrupt us, which has been a tried and true approach all season, to be fair. But so in this case, very interesting stuff. So off of a free kick, basically from fairly deep in like our own area of the pitch, kind of looks like we're lazily bringing it up. Emirhan gets it, and then just launches the ball into the box, and we're all wondering, like, what's this? Göztepe tries to react by sending up their back line, right, the offsides line, but a little slowly, and the result is that Emirhan just pinpoint, direct, perfectly placed ball into the path of Montero, who wisely stayed on just long enough to collect this one onside. They've tried to press him offsides, and the result is he has space. He steps back, and instead of doing something dumb, instead of wasting opportunity, he carefully places that Joseph is coming into the box, finds the perfect ball for him, and just Joseph, one touch, volley, right into the back of the net. No questions asked. Bam! Justice served, indeed. And so just some brilliant work from the kid, Emirhan, who I've really started to sing the praises of lately. Like, initially I thought people were getting a little too excited by, like, little flashes, little impressive actions, right? But, like, all in all, maybe not a guy who's impacting a game the way that you'd want someone to. At this point, he's all over the pitch. He's making passes all over the place. He's even doing things kind of like in this match. He didn't stand out in a lot of ways, but he did almost everything perfectly. And so, like, he's learning a position, and he's doing it gracefully. I'm starting to really get excited about this kid, and I think you can tell Valérien Ismail's as well. You almost want him to stay under the radar just long enough that we can get another, like, maybe year or two before someone comes in, so that we can really up his value. Because I feel like he's now earned a place in the lineup, no doubt, and he's starting to look like someone who could really pan out. Obviously, you don't want to get too excited. You don't want to jump the gun. He has to show consistency. He's got to show the ability to play at a high level consistently. But, it's a few matches in a row now. And like I said, that's it almost for the end of the half. But, without going into why he would come off later, he would come off. It wasn't because of his play. He did almost everything perfectly when he was out there. And we'll talk about why he had to come off in a moment. And this is why. So right after our goal in the 32nd minute, we're up 2-0 despite being a man down. We have much of the ball. And then disaster strikes. So Joseph, who just scores, right? He who giveth, taketh away. And of course, Joseph, being as biblical as he is, celebrating in the way he did, right? Pointing up to the heavens. He gets a biblical reference here as well. He taketh away by being red carded briskly after the goal. A rough tackle, no doubt. He steps on the opponent's ankle. What's questionable here, I suppose, is he gets a yellow card for it, right? The tackle's deemed rough, he gets the yellow card, and for some reason it goes to VAR. And I guess in an ideal world, it would go to VAR always. Almost everything would kind of theoretically go to VAR. They'd always have their eye on these types of things, and it would stamp it out, just because everyone would know that if you try to pull that type of tackle, you're going to get carded. Boom. Problem is, how rare is it that they actually do that? Like, what gave this cause for a VAR review over all the other tackles similarly that don't get it? And especially in our case, right, as Beşiktaş fans, it's easy to feel aggrieved because there have been so many examples where things didn't go to VAR where they should have for us. So, of course, somehow this gets that sort of second look never benefits us, does it? I'm all for technology. I'm all for evolution and more, increased scrutiny and objectivity or whatever it is. But we can all see how it's not necessarily applied uniformly, and that's the problem. Which is essentially the same old problem, right? Giving the authority and power to the same corrupt folks that had it before. So you've just given them the technology to doctor what they want from it, I suppose. But anyway, it's a much bigger conversation than we have here. Red card for Joseph. We're now 2 men down. And so, almost up to that point, we have 60% of the ball. And just in the last, let's say, this occurs officially on the books in the 37th minute. But I don't even think, it's not like there was just 8 minutes from there because of all the extra stoppage time and everything. I think there was probably 10 to 12 minutes. But so for just with whatever was left, we go down 10%. And by halftime, it's 50-50 possession. Again, we're 2 men down. Just before the half, Emre Bilgin gets a yellow card for, I suppose, taking too long to kick the ball up or something. I don't even recall it, but whatever. So at the half is where Emirhan İlkan comes off for Atiba Hutchinson. And again, right, you kind of understand the logic. We need someone who's more of a dual offensive and defensive player. More defensive-minded, perhaps, given that we're 2 men down at this point. So Atiba, it's a somewhat logical, not to mention the steady, the captain, the vet, the guy who kind of knows how to play things out. And that's what we'd have to do here, right? We're 2 men down, we have a 2-goal lead. Let's just try to hold on to the ball and waste time as much as we can without being egregious with it. Especially with how unjust some of this stuff was. So, yeah, I don't think we have to feel bad about it at all. For them, it's Kerim Alici coming on for Murat Paluli and Adis Yahovic for Karaman Demirtas. They're trying to go on the attack here, in theory. And there's a big period here where just nothing happens. This second half of this match is probably the most boring half of football I've ever watched. And it sounds, it sounds mean, but it's just reality. It was like pulling teeth. This game was on at 9 a.m. here in New York City. They changed it up, kind of late, but whatever. I was struggling to stay awake. I needed that morning coffee quite a bit. But so yeah, no action for the first, let's say, 20 minutes of the first half. There was actually a yellow card for Franco Di Santo in the 55th minute, and the 60th minute yellow card for Yalcin Kayan for them. They're getting really physical. And one of these tackles, they make a tackle that I think it was Montero who they took out. And the crowd cheers the tackle. And it was a vicious, the man should have been carded. Wasn't. I don't know what, the ref is just letting things go. I guess the crowd is quite vociferous, right? This is a side that's leaving the league. This is the last home game of the season. I think it's crowd management at this point, just not carding them for this stuff. But there were some real vicious tackles. Anyway, just the 2 yellow cards distributed there. They would bring on Ege Uzkayemolu for Marko Mihojevic in the 62nd minute. In the 63rd minute, Mishi Batshuayi would come on for Kyle Aaron. Can Bozdoğan for Rashid Ghezal. In the 65th minute, it would be number 43, David Tijanic, 24-year-old Slovenian central midfielder who would send in a really nice shot. Emre Bilgin would punch it pretty well, out of anyone's direction for them to make a rebound, get a second attempt on. And now it's starting to look like this Emre Bilgin kid is actually having a pretty good match, right? We're 2 men down. We're holding them off pretty thoroughly, and for any chances they produce, he's looking solid. And so if they thought, all right, let's get a bunch of shots off, and they've got some kid in goal who doesn't belong, at this point that notion has been dispelled, which must be a bit disheartening for them, right? They must have thought that could be an advantage of theirs. And it's not. It's definitely not. This kid is stepping up to the scene here. Just before that chance, Michy Batshuayi came into the match for Kyle Larin. Oh, I already mentioned that. And yeah, John Bozdogan for Rashid Gazal. And so that would be just about it until the 73rd minute, where, and I'd mentioned Jahovic coming on. Adis Jahovic, a guy who's been in the Super League for a while, so he should know better. He is going for a ball that's high. Necip comes in to head it, and he goes with his foot and kind of almost takes Necip out, foot to head. And I think he gets part of his collarbone area rather than his actual head, but it's clearly a very dangerous play. Initially a yellow card, VAR review, it's a red. Adis Jahovic comes out, and that's a big L for them because 2 men up, you expect them to come back and maybe put up a fight for at least the one goal, but then once they score that first, you'd expect them to press on for the second. Instead, they get nothing. Right? They're only a man up now, and we're already showing a proclivity for defending pretty well. And so, yeah, they're not too pleased with that, you'd imagine. 83rd minute, Ege Uzkayamolu gets a yellow card. 83rd, in the same, because of that break there, Efecan Sajikara comes on for Atakan Jankaya. 85th minute, Kedem Aliji gets a yellow card. 86th minute, Michy Batshuayi. Kedem Aliji really took out Michy Batshuayi, tough, really poor tackle on him. Batshuayi responds by honestly, this was more innocent. He jumped up to try to keep the ball in bounds and gets a piece of a dude's head on the jump. So, it wasn't vicious. Whatever, they're both getting carded here. 90th minute, +2, second minute of extra time. Izzet Furkan Malak comes on for David Tijanic, the guy who had a shot on goal earlier. Ege Uzkayamolu in the 7th minute of extra time. And at this point, the game probably should have already been whistled, but he sends in a shot really superbly, low across the goal mouth. But Emre Bilgin dives and steers it just wide past the post. And at this point, that's A+ goalkeeping, stellar stuff. And you can't say enough about this kid's match at this point. He showed that we have not just a pretty decent backup, right, in vis-a-vis Ersin, but if Ersin Destanoğlu is definitely on his way out, Emre Bilgin just raised the question, do we need to spend money on a goalkeeper? We obviously have Mert Günok, and so that, in a way, that's ideal. He provides insurance. So we could say, let's see what this Emre kid's got, and if not, we have Mert at least until the winter break, right? And the reason that's important is because we very clearly need to spend some money on central defenders, strikers, right? We have maybe even a winger, right? We have we have holes that need to be filled on the pitch. Obviously, Jedson Fernandes coming in is huge. That feels a huge one. But still, right? At least we need one anchor on the back line, a really good central defender, and maybe even a second one beyond that. We need a striker, and then probably even a backup striker, to be 100% honest. I think we can all be comfortable with Guven Yalçın as an option, but maybe not even if your main striker's out and Guven is the only other guy there, that's not gonna cut it, right? So certainly holes to be filled. So if we don't have to spend money on a keeper, that should be more than welcomed. But so yeah, kid played excellent. That's it for the match. Game over. We win it 0-2. Fantastic stuff, frankly. They had 18 shots, 7 on target. We only had 8 and 3 on target. They ended up with 62% of the ball to our 38%. No surprises, right? We were holding the ball quite a bit until we went a man down. And even still, we were doing all right until we went 2 men down. So, you can't be too surprised by that outcome. Possession-wise, the result was pretty great. So, of those 18 total shots, they had 2 big chances, right? We had 2 big chances as well. Obviously, right? We scored twice. But here's the thing. We missed 0 of those big chances. They missed 2 of them. It just goes to show you got to be able to finish up top. Even if you have all of the ball and all of the chances, you can't put it in the back of the net. That's how it goes. And especially when young Emre Bilgot, the GOAT, Young Bilgin, if he's playing like that, it's going to be hard to capitalize, I guess. But so yeah, they had 385 passes completed at an 84% rate compared to our 209 passes completed at a 73% rate, which, you expect us to not have the best match of all time as regards passing efficiency when you're playing with two men down much of it. You're just hoping to clear the ball much of the time or hope to get a miraculous chance on a risky through ball or whatever it might be. But one fascinating point here is they committed 20 fouls to our 10. Right? 20 fouls to our 10. And they got 6 yellow cards to our 3, but we had 2 red cards to their 1. So, in all, they would have 7 cards dished out. We would have 5, even though they committed double the amount of fouls. And quite a few were overlooked. One vicious one that could have been cardable and wasn't even called a foul at all against Montero. So, some really odd stuff, referee-wise, in what's been a terrible year regarding referees. This was perhaps one of the worst performances yet. But I guess we kind of almost have to expect it at this point. It's just going to get weirder and weirder. Let's talk a little bit about individual players. There actually are not a ton of players rated above a 7. Which I guess, again, right, with all the guys missing from this match, red cards out, red cards go lower, passing not particularly efficient because, you're doing the best you can, men down. Only 8 players rated above a 7. We could extend it out to 9 because Emirhan İlkan has a 6.99. He only played for half of a match, though. And considering how much of these stats are accumulated by, dinky little passes here and there and having a high pass efficiency because of that, he would easily have been rated highly had he played even 60 minutes. So the fact that he's cracking that, 7 rating or above is actually great. So let's talk about from the highest rated down to the lowest of the good players, right? Of all of those rated above 7. Highest rated player in this match, Emre Bilgin. Then, Francisco Montero. Of course, he had a great assist. But also a really solid, we had a clean sheet, right? Despite being 2 men down. You got to give some credit to the back line. Kyle Larin. Next. Of course, he scored, and that's going to give you a lot of points. Puntos. Then, Serdar Saç. Again, you got to give it up for the defenders. That back line was solid. Then Necip Uysal, who played much of the game. Remember, Wellington came out in the 11th minute. Then David Tijanic, who he had a good chance on goal, saved well by Emre Bilgin. Then Yalcin Kayan, who's their midfielder in the center of their midfield, who I think was something of a fulcrum for them, connecting their defense and attack. Then Umut Meraş, who played quite well, apparently. And then finally, like I said, Emirhan İlkan, just below the 7 rating, 6.99. But we'll add him to the group. There's only 9 players in the bench. So yeah, the bulk of them, of course, Beşiktaş players. Of those 9 players, only 2 were Göztepe players. 7 Beşiktaş players, and all of the top 5. So what are the stats for Emre Bilgin? Well, he made 7 saves. 13 of 30 on his passes. Well, what are you going to do, right? There's a lot of long balls kicking it out there, but yeah, and again, long balls, 8 of 25. So the majority of his passes were long balls, and of course, not particularly accurate ones. But, that's kind of a weakness of Ersin Destanoğlu, of Ersin, rather. I don't know why he did throw in his last name. But I would say Emre Bilgin showed much more of a strength in this regard. He had 1 diving save, which was actually a really fantastic one I mentioned. He had 3 saves inside the box. He acted as a sweeper once. Just 8 recoveries, 42 touches. So quite present for a keeper here. And really stood up stood up to the test thoroughly. It's quite a test for him. You'd think, oh, it's really low form, Göztepe, but again, right? Any side, if they're 2 men up, are going to be pressing and challenging, and so he really did great. These are all professional footballers, right? So yeah, fantastic effort from him. For Javi Montero, again, the assists, his passes 25 of 36, 69%, but he was 1 of 8 on long balls. Remember, we were kind of having to launch them up because we were men down for much of this. He played the full 90. He created the one big chance, obviously he got the assist. We already mentioned that. He had 45 touches, so he was quite active. Yeah, and like I said, his passing numbers were hurt by all the long balls launched up, but all in all, pretty solid stuff. He won 2 of 2 ground duels, so 100%. 2 of 3 aerial duels, so yeah, quite solid stuff from Montero, both obviously defensively, but also offensively with that nice assist, staying on side really well, to sort of dash their effort at a press, and yeah, just not just that, but do the right thing in terms of not panicking and rushing a shot at a weird angle, which is what I think a lot of people would have expected of him. But have to patiently wait for the attack to come up and then to find Joseph perfectly. It was a really nicely weaved ball on the ground. So yeah, fantastic start from Montero. Certainly a contender for man of the match. But I gotta give it up to the kid, Emre Bilgin. Just fantastic stuff from him. And so yeah, that's it. That's all we got to talk about for this match. Good win to close out the season, and whatever, you beat Göztepe, but we did it with 2 men down, right? We didn't score a single goal until we were down 1 man. In fact, we were down 1 man for both of those goals, but that was our most dominant spell. Was after we went down a man. So credit to Valérien Ismail, who had to play with his little pad for much of the game, trying to figure out who to play where. But he did exactly what needed to be done. We won. And you can't ask for more than that. Now, where does that leave us in the standings? So, we move up to 6th, which is good news, rather. We're still within 3 points of Alanyaspor, which is because they won, which is perhaps unfortunate. But the real bad news is that Başakşehir, they only managed to draw against Giresun, but only managed to draw against Giresun, sadly, means that they are now 4 points ahead of us going into the last match. Which means that even if they lost and we won and we gained 3 points, we'd still be 1 point back on 4th place Başakşehir. So the crazy thing is, so I said Fatih Karagümrük had to draw points against Fener, which they did, which means that still, or they have Alanyaspor next, so they could still beat Alanyaspor, so we can pass Alanyaspor and then come within 1 point of 4th place, if only Başakşehir hadn't drawn. And then the other thing is that they have a really solid goal differential, whereas ours is fairly mediocre. We're at a +8, they're at a +18. So we would have had to win by 5 goals, and they would have had to lose by 5 goals, in addition to leveling them up points. So it was a crazy scenario anyway that would have gotten us into 4th. But nonetheless, the dream is gone officially, mathematically even. So that's it for Europe. Nothing to look forward to. Trabzon is out of the cup. They lost. So that means 5th place is not going to be going to Europe. It's going to be the cup winner, which is Alanyaspor or I want to say Sivas, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't care. I couldn't care less who goes to the cup at this point. Yeah, it is. It's Kayseri and Sivas. Not Alanya. Sivas beat Alanya, I think. So, whatever. Means very little to me at the end. Either way, Kayseri or Sivas is not going to represent Turkey very well in whatever competition that is. I think Europa League, which is, I guess, a shame, but our coefficient is in shambles regardless. It's not going to be their fault. As far as who is going to represent us in the Conference League, it's looking like it's going to be Konyaspor and Başakşehir. I mean, Alanyaspor could still pass Başakşehir. I think either of those sides is pretty decent. Konyaspor is probably going to be the weaker of those teams. They certainly deserve a spot in Europe based on their season, but they've really struggled to close out the season. They're going to lose probably Abdülkadir Bardakçı, right? There's talk we might get him. They're going to probably be picked apart for any talent they do have based on the successes they've had. So they're not going to be good representatives in Europe, you would imagine. It's just a Conference League. The important thing is in the Champions League, it's going to be Trabzonspor and Fenerbahçe. I mean, in theory, Konya could catch Fener if they beat us on the final match day, and Fener lose. But there's also a +9 goal differential. And the best they can do is equal them. And Fener is playing Yeni Malatyaspor, which is by far the weakest side in Turkey this season. So you have to expect it's Fener going to the Champions League, which is a shame, obviously, as rivals of theirs. But probably good for Turkey, honestly. Fener will probably put up, or they have the resources to put up a better run in Europe than Konya. Whether they do or not is an entirely other question. But they're going to have to go through the qualifying rounds to get into the Champions League, so that might not even happen. It might be more of a Europa League or even Conference League run if things really fall apart. As for Trabzonspor, obviously good luck to them in Europe. And hopefully they get really tired over there and just completely stink up the Super League next year. And I hope they have to wait another 30 years for a title, you suckers. I'm kidding. I don't bear that much. I mean, honestly, I'm not, because I hope we win every year. I hope we win 30 in a row, obviously, as Beşiktaş fan. But I don't hold any grudge against Trabzon. I don't much care. In a way, I guess I'm glad that Fener didn't get a title again, or that Galatasaray, really struggled. And so let's quickly mention, since I waited for all the results to come in, I should mention Galatasaray got themselves a win against Adana Demirspor, rocketing themselves up into 11th place with 51 points. They could theoretically now finish as high as 9th. They could pass Adana Demir, who has collapsed at the end of the year here. All right, for a minute, they looked like they could be the side going to Europe. Far from it now. Galatasaray is yet to play Antalyaspor, on the other hand. And Antalyaspor is in 7th place. They could get up as high as 5th with a win. They could theoretically pass us. We're level on points with Antalyaspor. So, whatever. It is what it is. But certainly, the news for us is that at 58 points, we are 3 points behind Alanyaspor and 4 points behind Başakşehir. If we finish ahead of Alanyaspor on points, it would be impossible. We can't finish. We'd have to finish level on points with them. But we have the same goal differential, which means that if they did lose next week and we did win to go level on points with them, we would probably pass them. I think as far as the head-to-head goes, I don't honestly recall, and I don't know how we rank it, but we beat Alanyaspor 4-1 in our last outing. So I think we're okay on the head-to-head. Let's see, in the first match we lost 2-0, but their goal, so it comes out of goal differential. Yeah, so we'll pass them. We will officially end the season in 5th place if Alanya lose and we win. Alanya again has to play Fatih Karagümrük, who could want to play well. They have 57 points. They could end the season on 60 points and finish as high as 6th place, which would be a really great outing for them, no doubt about it. And they started really well, kind of fell apart, and then pulled it together again, and it's a pretty decent season for them. Certainly they're kind of both Alanya and Fatih Karagümrük competing for, at this point, Alanya has more to play for. That they could theoretically go to the Conference League if Başakşehir drops points. If Başakşehir loses or draw and Alanyaspor win, they could lose 4th to Alanyaspor. But it's all in the air. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we want to win. We hope to be victorious. In our last outing, we are going to be playing Konyaspor at home Sunday, May 22nd, 1 p.m. here in New York City. Local listing. Check your own, obviously. You're going to want to see when that game is on. Not to mention, last week it was supposed to be on at 1 p.m. and then it got moved up to 9 a.m. So, stay updated. That might change. That said, I hope it stays at 1 p.m. Emir, shouts to you. Maybe we can meet up But so yeah, with that said, that's all I gotta say. We're done. We're done here. A good win for us. 3 points, rocketing us all the way up into 6th place. We can still theoretically finish as high as 5th. We could also theoretically finish as low as 8th. But so let's hope for one last victory. Valérien Ismail's 3 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss so far, despite playing both Trabzon and Fenerbahce. Lots of injuries. End of the season, a ton of guys on their way out. Contracts expiring. Despite all of that, still a pretty good outing. So let's hope for more of that next season. So with that said, follow us on Twitter at Eagles_podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Black Eagles Podcast, one word. Follow myself at Sir_Wrights_a lot on Twitter. And as always, let's go Beşiktaş! Peace out, everybody.
Ortada Bobo. Şimdi Bobo'nun önüne. Bobo aldı. Bobo girdi. Bobo. Bobo. Bobo çok babasın. Çok harikasın. Çok güzelsin. Harika. Harika. Harika. Bobo. 2-0. 2-0. 2-0. 2-0. 2-0. Yoldan geldi. Dışarı attı. Goodbye Liverpool. Goodbye. Beşiktaş Liverpool'a gidiyor. Karakart'tan Sinan'a geliyor. Beşiktaş Liverpool'a
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.